Every city has its heroes, and every hero has a secret. For most people in this city, Mayor Edward Collins was that hero. The smiling man in expensive suits who shook hands with children, kissed babies during campaigns, and stood on stages promising hope. But for Amelia Grant, a young journalist with fire in her heart, heroes were never to be trusted at face value. Amelia was only 27 when she joined the Daily Chronicle, one of the most respected newspapers in the city. She wasn't the most experienced writer in the newsroom, but she carried something rare: conviction. Her childhood had shaped her into who she was. Her father had been a factory worker, a man who believed that truth was a weapon stronger than money. He used to tell her, "Amelia, lies can build empires, but only truth can tear them down." Those words never left her. So when she walked into that newsroom every morning, notebook in hand and coffee in the other, she didn't see herself as just another employee. She saw herself as a soldier of truth, even if nobody else believed in the war she was fighting. In the newsroom, there was one man she admired above all: Richard Hale, the editor-in-chief. Silver hair, sharp eyes behind thick glasses, a voice that carried weight, even in silence. Richard had been in journalism for over 30 years. He was a legend, the type of man who had seen it all: riots, scandals, wars, and even the downfall of powerful businessmen. To Amelia, he wasn't just a boss. He was a mentor, a father figure after her real father passed away. One evening, after she had submitted a small report about a councilman pocketing illegal funds, Richard had called her into his office. "Amelia," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I read your piece. Sharp, clean, ruthless." Her heart fluttered. "Thank you, sir." Richard smiled faintly. "You've got fire in you, the kind of fire this newsroom hasn't seen in years. But remember, fire is dangerous. It can light up the world or burn you alive." Amelia nodded, half understanding, half dreaming. Over the next few months, Amelia began to build a name for herself. She uncovered a councilman taking bribes for construction permits. She exposed a local businessman involved in tax fraud. Her stories were small compared to the grand scandals, but they carried weight. They made people talk. Colleagues began whispering her name in the break room. "That's Amelia, the girl who doesn't back down." And Richard? He always gave her a subtle nod when he passed her desk. He never praised too much, but that nod was enough. Amelia felt unstoppable. But then, she started hearing whispers. Mayor Edward Collins, the man everyone loved, the man who seemed too good to be true. Some said his campaign donors included questionable corporations. Others said his sudden rise in wealth didn't quite add up, but no one dared to investigate him. One afternoon, while Amelia was sipping her coffee at her desk, a colleague leaned over and whispered, "Hey, Grant, careful what stories you chase." She raised her eyebrow. "What do you mean?" The colleague smirked nervously. "The mayor, Collins. Don't touch him. People who try, well, let's just say their careers don't last long." Her pen froze over her notebook. That was exactly the kind of warning that made her curious. That night, she sat in her tiny apartment staring at the city lights outside her window. She thought of her father's words. She thought of Richard's warning about fire. Mayor Collins, the untouchable man, the golden leader. She opened her laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard, heart racing. With one deep breath, she typed the words into the search bar. Edward Collins campaign funding scandals. At that moment, she knew she was stepping into dangerous waters. And once she did, there would be no turning back. What Amelia didn't know was that behind the mayor's perfect smile lay secrets dark enough to bury anyone who dared to expose them. This was not just another story. This was the beginning of a war. The deeper you dig into someone's smile, the darker the shadows you find behind it. And for Amelia Grant, the closer she got to Mayor Edward Collins, the more she realized his smile was hiding a mask. Amelia started with the basics. She requested interviews with the mayor's office. The response? A polite rejection letter, signed with a secretary's pen. She tried again, this time requesting access to city contracts. The document she received looked perfect, too perfect, as if someone had scrubbed them clean. But Amelia was not the type to be satisfied with polished lies. She began digging into the city's public records. At first, everything looked normal. Then, small irregularities. Construction projects that cost 3 times more than the average. Companies winning city bids that were only a few months old. She traced one company, Havenbrook Enterprises. Officially, it was a small logistics firm. But when Amelia visited the listed address, she found a run-down building with no sign of actual work being done. Her notebook filled quickly. Havenbrook Enterprises, tied to Collins's former campaign manager. Payments, $5 million for transportation services never delivered. Shell company? Possible money laundering. The pieces didn't fit until she realized the puzzle wasn't broken. It was designed that way. But numbers weren't enough. Amelia wanted stories, real people. She went into neighborhoods that most reporters ignored, the ones suffering under budget cuts. A single mother, Maria, told her how the mayor had promised affordable housing, but the rent only kept rising. A factory worker explained how subsidies were cut, costing hundreds of jobs while wealthy developers thrived. A local shop owner, eyes tired with despair, whispered, "They smile at us during campaigns, then choke us when the cameras are off." Amelia's chest tightened as she wrote every word. She felt the weight of their voices pressing against her pen. One rainy evening, Amelia spotted something unusual. She had been tailing a city official's car when she saw it pull into the parking lot of an upscale hotel. Minutes later, Mayor Edward Collins stepped out of a black sedan. Her pulse raced. She stayed low, gripping her phone, snapping blurry photos. Through the glass doors, she saw him enter a conference room. Waiting inside were men in expensive suits, executives from corporations she'd already linked to shady city contracts. The door closed. The smiles vanished. Amelia didn't hear the words inside, but she saw enough. Handshakes, envelopes exchanged, contracts passed across the table. It wasn't politics, it was business, dirty business. That night, as she drove home, Amelia checked her rearview mirror. A black SUV trailed her. No headlights, no license plate she could read. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. She slowed down. The SUV slowed down. She sped up. So did they. Finally, heart pounding, she swerved into a crowded gas station. The SUV drove past without stopping, but the message was clear. She wasn't invisible anymore. Someone was watching. The next morning, Amelia returned to the newsroom exhausted but determined. She dug deeper into Havenbrook Enterprises. After hours of searching, she stumbled on a single leaked document, an internal memo. At the top, stamped in bold, confidential. The content was short, but explosive. Payment approved, $3,200 transferred to Havenbrook Enterprises, signed Mayor Edward Collins. Amelia froze, her breath caught in her throat. This was it, the smoking gun, proof that the mayor wasn't just connected, he was directly authorizing payments to a shell company. She printed the file, hands trembling. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to smile. But Amelia didn't know. Holding the truth was only the beginning. The real danger wasn't in finding it. It was in surviving it. Sometimes the most painful knife in your back is the one held by the person you trusted most. Amelia Grant was about to learn that lesson the hardest way possible. After weeks of sleepless nights, Amelia had it all: documents, testimonies, photos of secret meetings. She spent hours piecing everything together, her walls covered in printouts, strings of red thread connecting people and companies like a detective board. Finally, she sat at her desk, typing the headline that would shake the city: "The Smiling Corruption: How Mayor Edward Collins Sold Out His People." Every word burned with fire. Every paragraph carried weight. This wasn't just a story. It was the truth. The kind of truth that could bring down an empire. And there was only one person she wanted to show it to first. She printed the files, her evidence stacked neatly in a folder, and walked straight into Richard Hale's office. He looked up from his desk, glasses perched low on his nose. "Amelia," he said, almost warmly, "what brings you here at this hour?" Her voice shook with excitement. "Richard, I've got it. The big one. Collins, the bribes, the shell companies, everything." He gestured to the chair. "Sit. Show me." She spread the papers across his desk, pointing to signatures, contracts, and transcripts of interviews. Her voice sped up with every detail, her passion lighting the room. When she finally finished, she looked at him with hopeful eyes. "This is it, Richard. This will change everything. We can run it front page tomorrow." Richard didn't move. He sat back in his chair, fingers pressed together, eyes heavy with thought. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Amelia frowned. "Richard, did you hear me? This is the story we've been waiting for." Finally, he spoke, softly. "No, Amelia. This story will never be published." Her stomach dropped. "What? What do you mean?" Richard's face was unreadable. "You don't understand the weight of what you've brought me. It's too dangerous." Amelia's voice rose. "Dangerous? Richard, this is journalism. This is truth. Isn't this what we do?" Richard exhaled, removing his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Then he looked at her, not as a mentor, not as a father figure, but as something colder. "Listen to me, Amelia. Collins is untouchable. He owns the city, the courts, the police, and yes, even this newspaper." Her eyes widened. What? What do you mean?" Richard's voice dropped, almost a whisper. "I made a deal. The mayor's people, they came to me weeks ago. Funding, protection, favors. In exchange, this story dies here." The words struck her like a blade. Her throat tightened. You knew? You knew what he was doing and you took their money?" He didn't flinch. "I've been in this business 30 years, Amelia. I've seen people destroyed for less than what you're holding in that folder. I won't let you throw your life away chasing something you can't win." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes. "So what, Richard? Are you just like them? All your speech is about truth, about integrity, lies?" Richard's jaw tightened. "Grow up, Amelia. Integrity doesn't pay the bills. Integrity doesn't protect you when men like Collins decide you're a threat. If you push this, you won't live long enough to regret it." The room fell into silence. The sound of the clock ticking on the wall felt louder than her heartbeat. She whispered, voice breaking, "I trusted you." Richard's eyes softened for just a second, almost as if he regretted it. But then he looked away. "Go home, Amelia. Drop the story. That's the last advice I'll give you." Amelia stumbled out of his office, clutching the folder to her chest. The newsroom felt colder, emptier. The people at their desks blurred past her as she walked. She reached the stairwell, sat on the steps, and let the tears fall. Everything she believed in, Richard's mentorship, the power of journalism, the idea that truth could prevail, collapsed in that single moment. Her hands trembled as she looked at the folder.
The truth was in her hands, but it was worthless if nobody dared to speak it. For Amelia, the betrayal wasn't just losing her story, it was losing faith in the very people who taught her to believe in truth. But betrayal has a way of sparking something deeper. And for Amelia Grant, this was not the end. This was the beginning of her most dangerous choice.
When the truth is in your hands, it feels like a gift. But when the whole world wants you to bury it, the truth becomes a curse. Amelia Grant sat in her small apartment, staring at the folder that had already cost her everything she believed in. The room was quiet, except for the hum of her old refrigerator. The evidence lay spread across her kitchen table. Contracts, signatures, photos, testimonies. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like poison. Richard's words echoed in her mind. If you push this, you won't live long enough to regret it. Her chest tightened. She thought of the black SUV that had followed her. She thought of the mayor's cold smile, the silent handshakes, the envelopes of cash. For the first time, Amelia felt afraid, not for her story, but for her life. She closed her eyes, her mind drifting back to her childhood. Her father's rough hands placing a newspaper on the table, his voice steady, strong. Never fear the truth, Amelia. Fear the world that tries to silence it. Her eyes burned with tears. Her father had believed in honesty, even when it cost him promotions, even when it made him enemies. Would she betray his memory now just to save herself? Amelia pulled out her notebook and flipped through her handwritten notes. Maria, the single mother, the factory worker who lost his job, the shop owner whose livelihood was dying. Their faces swam before her eyes. They had trusted her with their stories, their pain, their hope. If she stayed silent, she wouldn't just betray her father, she'd betray them too. Her hands shook as she reached for her laptop. She could hear her heart pounding in her ears. There was no editor to protect her, no newspaper willing to stand beside her. But the truth didn't need a newspaper. The truth only needed a voice. She scanned the documents into files, typed a long, detailed report, and attached every piece of evidence. Then she logged on to an independent watchdog website known for exposing corruption. Her cursor hovered over the upload button. She whispered to herself, "For them, for all of us." She clicked. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Independent blogs picked it up first, then social media exploded. Photos of Collins in the hotel leaked alongside the contracts with his signature. The people were furious. Protesters filled the streets, chanting outside City Hall. Headlines screamed betrayal. Mayor Collins exposed in bribery scandal. And Richard? His silence didn't save him. The public discovered his ties to Collins, his backroom deals. His reputation crumbled overnight. Amelia watched the chaos unfold from her small apartment, the glow of the TV flickering across her face. She wasn't smiling, she wasn't celebrating, because she knew this wasn't the end. Collins still had power. His allies would still come for her. But deep inside, she felt something stronger than fear. She had done it. She had chosen truth over silence. And even if she had to walk this road alone, she would never regret it. Closing narration. Powerful and haunting. Sometimes, the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes the truth sets the world on fire. And Amelia Grant was ready to burn.